Oh, well here, and we are back with the Sunken City. Now, you can see I've started on this room. This room is going to be sort of like a shopping centre. Obviously it's not a shopping centre because it's too small to be a shopping centre, but this is where obviously the merchants or specific merchants are going to be within the Sunken City, because you're not going to have a merchant of every single kind in the Sunken City, because you've also got the Buried City, which will have some other merchants in, so so the ones that aren't here might be in the Buried City, or might not just actually appear in the entire thing at all, kind of thing, blah 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 blah. But this episode, we're not so much going to be going through me just building the shopping area, because as you can see I've already started. It just needs obviously some finishing touches, like the whole aspect of it being underwater, a bit more sort of like kind of like clutter decoration, this, that and the other, la 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 la. This video is going to be a bit more of a technical video on that. We're basically going to cover sort of like, one, how to create an actual merchant. So so in the case of this, it's going to be basically how to make a blacksmith, how to make basically a spell seller, someone who's who obviously sells spell tomes, staffs, this, that and the other. And we have someone who's a bit more niche. So this person, we're not going to be covering how we're going to create this person, because this person is going to be a bit more niche on the fact that this person, the name of this character who's going to be owning this place is actually a request. Because there will be some people added into this mod by as a request, because they asked me and I thought, yeah, why not? So technically the person who owns this is actually going to be called Salty Ninja. And Salty Ninja wanted to be an Argonian, which is the only race that's going to appear in the Sunken City, but she didn't want to be a follower or anything like that. She wanted to be a merchant. And obviously a lot of the time Argonians have their names, not all the time, but some of them will have their names sort of tying to something about them. It's either something that they do, something that they did, sort of kind of thing like that. So it's kind of a name is a label to something about them. And so Salty Ninja is going to be someone who specifically sells more kind of thiefy kind of items, so like lockpicks, potions that are of carry weight, potions of invisibility, and that kind of thing, stuff that a thief would use. But obviously I need to create a slightly more uniquer chest for them to access to sell and buy stuff. But we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to worry about a basic merchant, a basic blacksmith or a basic mage. And another thing to point out that now this is more for this little bit is more for is actually for Dragonblade Kalal, who is the one who's coming up with the Sunken City. He did want basically some Argonians to sit here, and for them to basically be like a bank kind of thing, deposit money, take out money, checks, this, that and the other, blah blah blah, or boring banking. But the only problem is obviously I can't really create an actual banking system. It might be possible to create a banking system for like PC and stuff like that, where you can obviously add in scripts, this, that and the other. But for PS4 to create a banking system is, as far as to my knowledge, impossible to do. But if there is a way to do it, I know it's going to be kind of long-winded, kind of probably a bit complicated, and sort of something where I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to be able to get it to work, or 100% guaranteed that it will work. So what I've just basically done for the banking, this bank, is basically, yeah, you still have the two Argonians, they'll still sit there, you know, tra la 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 la. But basically, you got a safe here, which this safe is going to act basically like a storage for the player, where the player can store any gold that they want to put in there. You know, if they want to put 5,000 gold in there, they can put 5,000 gold in there. They can put precious gems in there. You know, all those kind of things that you would put in a safety deposit box, kind of thing, and leave with a bank or something along those lines. Basically, that's what this is going to be. It won't go behind the door or anything like that. It's just here because I want there to be something there visually that obviously the actual player can actually interact with. So it won't be an actual bank because I can't 100% guarantee that I'll be able to make the bank, and two, I can't 100% guarantee that the bank would actually work. So this is sort of like a trade-off for that. So it's not so much a banking system, but it's a place for player storage, but more aimed to be sort of looking like it's a place where you would leave precious gems, gold, all those kind of things that you would want to put in a safety deposit box and put in the bank, basically. And that's how that's gonna go. But we're not just covering merchants, we're also going to cover followers as well, because I want to cover the aspects of the followers, aspects of the merchants, and marryable people, how to create someone who you can marry as well. But of course, obviously, with the marriage, there are specific races that you can't marry, as well as there's specific genders within those races that you can't marry. Dragonblade did send me a list of the races that you can't marry and which genders within those races you can't marry. But for example, the Khajiits, both male and female, you cannot marry at all. There are mods you can get for all the platforms for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation where you can marry them. But without mods, Khajiit, for example, you can't marry any Khajiit at all in the game. There's none. Because they got shafted by Bethesda. But there's also, I think, like, for example, a good example is, I think, Redguard. If I was to make a Redguard male and give them the faction needed to be marryable, it still wouldn't work. And that's something to do with basically dialogue options, which I'm not going to go through on this, but it's basically Bethesda never implemented the dialogue options within the game and never recorded audio for those dialogue options. So basically male Redguards cannot be married, whereas I believe female Redguards can, because I think there is one female Redguard you can marry in the game. It might be two, but I think it might just be one. And they work because there was dialogue options and all dialogue audio recorded for a female Redguard for the marriage so-called quest, so you can actually marry them. But I'll still show you how to basically do the marriage thing in the first place. But right, so first off, we're gonna start with the merchant. So the first thing we want to do for a merchant, so in this video I'm going to show you how to do a blacksmith. They'll all work in pretty much a very similar way. How you set them up, you just have to select specific options relating to what you want them to buy and sell. But in their general setup, it's the same. It's just there's a few slight variations of choice. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to close some of these down because I don't need all of these open. The first thing we're going to do is we need to go to character, open up character, and we need to go to faction. And we can get rid of that, blah blah blah. The general gist of factions, of what they are, is basically ties people. It ties certain NPCs to certain things. So, for example, there's a bandit faction, there's a bandit ally faction, which basically I think is basically sort of like can be at a point you can get an ally who's a bandit or a friend who's a bandit, sort of thing. So then they don't attack you, whereas the bandit faction will just attack you. Bear faction. There's other stuff. You got Caravan A leader faction, Caravan B leader faction. Obviously, that's to do with the Kibbeat caravans. Companion circle faction. Crime factions. You know, so it's all. So factions basically will tie into certain NPCs. It depends on if that NPC is a former merchant, whether they're a bandit or part of the Falmore or city guard or own a specific shop, and you know, this, that, and the other kind of thing. Obviously, I'm not going to go into every single kind of faction, because as you can see, there are a lot of factions. But the general gist is a faction is relating to who that person is, or what that person does, or what that person follows. But we're going to create a new faction. So obviously, again, once again, we're going to want to right click, click new. So ID, we're going to go ID. We're going to put 0 cities, blacksmith faction. You know, just to create the ID. You don't need to worry about giving it a name. Really, there's not too much point to giving it a name. General can be, now this members will basically be, if you give an NPC this faction, they will end up on the list here. And inter-faction relations, now this is basically, you can link certain factions to be friends, or, you know, as you can see down here, ally, friend, neutral, and enemy. So basically, if you set them to be friend or an ally, and then you create your NPC, and part of their AI combat is to help friends and allies, then if a person in the opposite faction to what you've put here, so let's just say, I don't know, let's just say we put here bandit faction, and we made them a friend. If this person saw you attacking someone who was part of the bandit faction, they wouldn't turn around and start attacking the bandits. They would turn around and start attacking you, because they are a friend or an ally to the bandit faction. Not just that specific bandit, but the entire faction that is the bandit faction. Neutral will basically just mean they wouldn't really do anything. They will probably more likely run away rather than actually fight. And if you select enemy, then basically they would just basically attack on sight. So if they're enemy, so if they were an enemy of the bandit faction, then they would attack bandits on sight. If the enemy was player faction, which is your character, then they would attack you on sight, basically. Hidden from player character, we don't need to mess around with that one too much. Special combat, we don't really need to mess around with that one too much. But what we do really want to do, or it can be, depends on what you've got in the ways of your shop's display and stuff like that, is can be owner. So in the case of this, we're going to select yes, they can be an owner. Now, nothing that's on here is actually going to be takeable. It's all static. So it's there for decoration, but it's not there to be interacted with. But let's just say, for example, this bow here, not the big ass table, but a bow, was an actual bow. You know, a bow that you as the player could actually use. See if I can get it up there. Alright, boom. So if we go into here, now this is going to tie in with can be owner. So if we go to here and then go to see if it's actually on here, because this is a static object, it's not an actual thing. Okay, so this one probably not the best one to select on. So let's go to an item that I know is not static. So potion, this potion here. Now if you select your faction to be can be owner, what you can do then, for example, is then go to ownership on here, and you got NPC and you got a faction. You can then select a specific faction, and then it belongs to that faction. So then technically it will be classed as stealing, because you're stealing it from someone who actually owns it. Obviously, what that would do then is obviously it would basically anger the person, whoever part of that faction is. Or you can select a specific NPC. So for example, I can make this potion here owned by Spirit. So if I was to steal it or take it, then Spirit would be pissed and not like me for stealing her potion. But Spirit is not going to be the person who owns this. Spirit is actually going to be one of the followers, but it's actually a follower of who you will be able to find in the buried city. But that's basically what Can Be Owner does. It basically allows you to basically make the faction own things rather than just be up there. You can make it allows them to own stuff. Ranks you probably don't, unless you're doing a lot of like different kind of rankings, like literal rankings in it. Ranks you wouldn't really mess around with all that much. For a merchant you don't need to. Crime, you can set do not report crimes against members. So basically, if you were to tick that, and then if a member of that faction was to commit basically a crime, then the other person who saw them wouldn't basically report them. Ignore crimes against non-members. So this basically, if they see a crime, they will ignore it, whether it be werewolf, pickpocket, trespass, assault, stealing, murder, blah 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 blah. Track crime, which is obviously exterior jail marker, follower weight marker, stolen goods container. Now this is obviously where you'll have to put in a load of markers, containers, link them to this, link them to that, and it's a bit more complex. But again, like enough for the merchant faction, we don't really need to worry about crime. What we mainly obviously want to worry about is a vendor. So, or basically owner, shop owner, basically. So we want to make them a vendor. So we want to make sure that the vendor or vendor here is ticked. And then you got start hour, end hour. Now these work on the 24-hour clock. They don't work on a 12-hour clock. They work on 24-hour. So it'll be, if if you want them to be open from 8 in the morning, you would put in 8. And say if you wanted them to stop selling stuff and buying stuff at say 8 o'clock in the evening, so they were open for 12 hours, you would then put 20. You wouldn't put 8 again. You would put 20 because it runs on the 24-hour clock. Which obviously, if you don't know the 24-hour clock, it's basically 0 is midnight, and then you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which will normally be in the AM. And then you got 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 and 23, which is then PM, and then it goes back to 0, which is midnight. And that's how you would set time. But I want to make these guys useful, so we're going to put basically pretty much all day. They are open all day, basically. And that's how I want to set them up. So we got them open in there. So location, we're going to click on edit. We're going to click. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but the easiest way, because they're not going to go anywhere, they're going to stay within the Sunken City, is we will basically click on in sale, and then Sunken City, and then click OK. And then radius, we'll set up the radius to 1024. 1024 on radius is, so I would say it's probably the average radius for a lot of things. So you can't go wrong with putting it as 1024. But you can set it to be smaller, or you can set it to be higher. But 1024 is a good basic starting point for it. Then you want to go to vendor buy/sell list, and here you got a lot of stuff, but we're going to ignore a lot of this stuff, because what we want to go to is vendor items. So we've got vendor we got vendor items apothecary, or basically the alchemist, vendor item blacksmith, college urag, Dark Brotherhood, Drunken Huntsman, vendor items Fletcher, Hunter, Innkeeper, so on and so forth. All the jobs basically in the game. But since this is going to be a blacksmith, we want to set it to vendor items blacksmith. Now you can select not sell and buy. Now this is the one thing that I find weird. As far as I can remember, if you're setting up a general merchant like Bellafor in Whiterun, or Lucan or Lucian in Riverwood, what you would actually select them as is you would select them as, you got Misk, Lucan and Misk. You would select Misk or miscellaneous, but then you would select that. But for a blacksmith, we need that off, and then obviously go to blacksmith. Why it works like that, I don't know. For some reason it just does. So, vendor conditions, we don't need to worry about that. But this will primarily work in the same way that normal conditions works within the game. But I'm sure you can find plenty of other videos online that go into more detail about conditions. So I'm not going to worry about that here. Only buys stolen items. For the sake of this vendor, then we're not going to. But say if you wanted to add more fences to the Thieves Guild, or basically, so people who would buy you stolen items, you would then tick this. But this person here is not going to buy stolen items, so we don't need that on. Now, the last thing we need to do is select a reference in random window for a merchant container. Now, as of at the moment, I haven't got a container for the merchant. Now, every merchant is linked to a chest, and a sort of specific kind of chest. So what we're going to type in, we are going to type in, if I can remember, we need to type in vendor. So we'll have a look. Then go to, where we go? I'm going to go to world objects, go to container, and then we got a lot of stuff here. So you got basically the half fire vendor chest morph, that for the half fire, blah 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 blah. But we're missing some, so we don't want them. So what we're going to type in instead is blacksmith. And then you can see here we got a lot of merchants all of a sudden. Merchant, blah 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 blah. Now all of these chests here are basically blacksmith chests, so they will have items in them that a blacksmith would sell or buy. And just to make things easier for ourselves, we're gonna go and select. There, got merchant Whiterun War Maidens blacksmith chest. Alright, so we're gonna right click on that and then duplicate. Then we're gonna open this up, and we're just gonna change the ID. So to 0 cities blacksmith chest. Alright, bada bing bada boom. So in the ways of a container, you can add in items, take out items. So for example, what you can do, say for example, let's just say, I don't know, I wanted to give them a specific weapon to sell. So we'll go to weapon. We'll just delete that and then you get all the weapons. Blah 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 blah. So let's just say I wanted them to sell a Akaviri katana. Because no merchant in the game sells an Akaviri katana. What you would just do is you would just basically left click, hold on to it, bring it over, and then drop it. And then if we look at the top, and there is the Akaviri katana. So now they will sell an Akaviri katana. But what we can also do is we can also change how many they sell. So if we go down to count, and then say if we put in just say 100, for example, and then you just click up on there, and then if you go into that, now I've changed it to something else. I think, I don't know, maybe it didn't count. It's being weird. But what you do is you click on count, type in how many you want them to sell, then click on that, and then you can see it changed to 100. And then, you know, you can do it again. Say for example, say you think 100 is too many, so you want to shrink it down to 10. Just take off a 0, click on there, and then they go. They will now sell you 10 Akaviri katanas if you want to buy 10 Akaviri katanas. But this person's not going to sell Akaviri katanas, so we're just going to basically right click, delete, and there you go. They're gone. No more Akaviri katanas for anyone. And the one thing you do want to make sure that stays on for this is respawns. You want to make sure that actually stays on, because if you turn it off, then once you bought everything off them, they won't restock. So you want to make sure that the merchant's chest does respawn. And then that's about it. That's literally all we've really actually got to do here. Then we just click OK, click on there. Okay, click on that. No, yes, done. Right. Now that that's in, now we just need to go down to the container, go up, and find the blacksmith chest, and then boop. Alright, so there is our blacksmith merchant's chest, where houses all the items that they will sell. And what we just want to do is we just want to bring this down. Just so then people can't just suddenly just go and steal it, steal everything out of it. We bring it down and bring it under the ground, so a place that isn't accessible by the player. And there it is. Bada bing bada boom. There's their chest. Then what you want to do is click on. Now that chest is in, you want to click on select reference in render window. You can do it by sell and reference, but it's a lot easier to do it like by clicking on this here. Just click on that, and then you can see we got our little red crosshair. Now if it means it's red, when it's on red, it means basically it can't select it. Basically it's an invalid selection. But if I go over the chest, as you can see, it now turns white. So now that it's white, that means if I click on this, it will select the chest. So we're just going to double left click, and then there you go. As you can see, sound, cities, Sunken City, and then reference is that chest, because that is the chest's editor ID and reference number. And now that that's in, boom, that's it. There's a very quick basic rundown on how to make a faction, or at least in the ways of this, a merchant faction. But of course, some things will slightly change in the ways of what you want them to buy or sell, their chest, and where, this, that, and the other kind of thing. This is only, this is a kind of a simplified rundown on it. But of course, if there's something that you didn't quite catch on with and not totally sure about, you could just leave a comment below and about it, and I will try and answer the question for you. But now that we got that, now we got the chest. Now we need to actually create the actual merchant. We need to actually create the person who actually sells them. So what we're going to do is we're going to go on actor. We're going to right click and select new. And here we are with the character creator. So many things, yet so many of these things we're not going to be using. So we're going to start with, we're going to put on traits. I'm going to just leave that there, and we're going to start over here first. So editor ID 0 cities blacksmith dude. It's the blacksmith dude. And then so that's editor ID. So we got, as you can see, we've got name and short name. The name is obviously what the actual character would be called when you go to interact with them, and the short name is basically if you play the game with subtitles on. So when they're speaking, you can read what they're saying. The short name is what will come up by the subtitles of what they're saying. So if they was to call them Flipping Me Bob, for example, then when it says talk, it'll say talk to Flipping Me Bob. If I gave them the short name of Flippy, then when the subtitles of their dialogue comes up, it would say Flippy and then whatever they're saying. So the short name isn't really all that massively important. The main thing you want is an actual name. So this blacksmith merchant is going to be called Flat Fingers, because he's struck his fingers so many times whilst trying to make weapons and armour, his fingers have just gone flat. And now we got a lot of stuff here. Is character generates preset. So basically, if you create this character and then make them a character generates preset, what that will basically do is that when you come to create a new character and you have this mod installed, then the face of this particular NPC here will be in the preset section on the character creation. But we don't want that, because we don't want anyone else to create this bastard. Essential basically means that they cannot be killed. They are literally invincible. Nothing can kill them. So we're gonna want to make them essential. Protected works in a very similar way to essential, but I think the difference with protected is that though maybe, you know, it is sort of like other certain NPCs won't be able to kill this person, you yourself still can. So it's kind of like they won't just suddenly die in the middle of the tundra due to some stupid ass bandit attack. They'll more likely die because you tried to kill the bandit and they got in the way, and you killed them. But since we got essential on, we don't really need to make them protected. Respawn is basically respawn is more for if you're creating like new enemies and stuff like that, and you link them to a marker and like respawn and spawn markers and stuff like that. So you know, respawn basically allows there to be multiple versions of them when they, you know, you kill one and then three or 5 in-game days later they come back, and that's basically what respawn does. Unique is basically the opposite. That basically means that there is literally only one of them in the game. There's no other duplicate copies of them or anything like that or anywhere else. There is only one of them. So we want to make this person unique. Summonable is relating to magic, into the ways of you would have to create a magic effect that allows you to conjure. So if you would, you know, say if you wanted to make a summonable bear, you know, you wanted to make a spell that allowed you to conjure this powerful bear you created. Obviously, you know, you'll do the whole creating the bear, la 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 la, doing all the stats, this, that, and the other, blah 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 blah. Then you would click on summonable. But obviously, you know, you would tick this one. But obviously, with flat fingers, we don't need to. But you would tick summonable if you wanted to create a conjuring bear. Then go to magic effects, which obviously would be in the magic tab. So you would go to magic effects like this. You would then go and find the, let's see if we can find it. It could be in summon maybe. So like, so yeah, you know, you would go down to summon familiar. So it's a conjuration spell which allows you to conjure up a creature. You would just then duplicate the summon familiar, change the to ID. You know, so you would change this to an ID that you recognise, change the name to whatever you wanted it to be changed to, change the description a little bit to match the description that you want it to be, and then select the associated item number 1, and then in here you would look for the add to ID of your bear, and then select that, and then click OK and all this and all that, and then it's done. And then you just add the magic effect to a spell, and then you put the spell, and then you add the spell to a spell tome. So then when you read that spell tome, you learn the spell to conjure up your bear. There you go. There's a very quick explanation about that. Though that's probably a little bit harder to follow on the premise of, because I just went through it very quickly. Its ghost basically is you can't hit them, pretty much. Basically, they can't be hit. Invulnerable is the same as essential, but I think the difference is with invulnerable is basically they don't lose health either, whereas if they're essential they can still lose health, but with invulnerable they can't. And its ghost is basically you can't even hit them. There's a lot of ways to keep people alive in this, apparently. Doesn't bleed basically negates bleeding damage. So if you want to make something that isn't affected by bleeding damage, you just tick doesn't bleed, and then that negates bleeding damage. Simple actor, I don't know. I've never messed around with simple actor, but I'm just gonna guess it. Basically, it's just more for creating like a simple kind of NPC. And doesn't affect staff meter, so that's more for like if you want to create a follower who doesn't get everybody's attention every 15 fucking seconds. But we don't need to worry about that. But I hear you saying, oh well, this mod is coming out on PS4. It'll be out on PS4, PS5. How do you get past the face glitch problem? Now, I do actually have a video on how you actually get around the face glitch without needing to actually use a mod to do it. There is a mod created by Oracle J that actually allows you to get rid of the face glitch by downloading 2 different mods to work simultaneously together, and then you give them a particular item and then it gets rid of their face glitch. But the way I'm going to show you is basically how to do it without needing to download a mod. But the only difference is that you can't create a unique look for your character. But you do have a very big library of people you can use. So what you're going to want to do is you want to go to template data, or data, depends on where you're from. But template data, and then you got actor base. And as you can see at the moment, currently at the moment it says none. So what you want to do is you basically we're going to click that. Now what this does is that this is literally every single NPC in the game, pretty much. Nearly every single form of NPC in the entire game. Now, we are going to be creating an Argonian. So we want to look for an Argonian. Now, yeah, you can learn about Argonian names. Now, one thing to mention is, I am not 100% sure as to why, but as far as to my knowledge, this face glitch fix does not work if you select a preset. I'm not 100% sure as to why, but if you select a preset, they will still have the face glitch bug. So you can use literally near enough anything for this, except the presets. So the presets, we're going to leave them alone because presets suck anyway. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go down, and we're gonna go down to, say, let's go down, not to Alakia. We don't want to go to Alakia. What we want to do is we want to find some bandits. Now, here we are. We got a Bandit 01 Magic Argonian male. So Flatfingers is going to be male. Now, some of you will realise this. You got some of them end with M and some of them end with F. That's pretty self-explanatory. M stands for male. F stands for female. There you go. Simple. Bosh. Done. But what we're going to do, we're going to base it off this dude here. We're going to base it off Disenchanted Bandit Magic Argonian M. We're going to select them. But what we're going to do next is we're going to bring up the forward view, and as you can see, there's nothing in there. Absolutely grey, boring, and nothing. Now what you want to do is you want to go to use traits and click on the box. And there you go, you clicked on the box. And as you can see there, it's all very different. So if we now tick that, we now come to realise that this dude does not work. So this dude is useless to us. So next we're going to go find the next Argonian. And it's a keep on going until it works. Basically. Alright, so there we go. We got an Argonian here. Here we are. And here is Z Argonian. And one thing you will come to realise is that his head colour is completely different to the colour of his body. This is normal. So when you do it this way, the colour of their heads and hair and this and that and the other will always be different to the colour of the body in the creation kit. But once you go into the game, whatever colour skin their head is, the rest of the body will match. It's only for some reason in the creation kit, like in here, it seems to do it like this. But in game, he will be this kind of like grey beige colour. I don't really know what colour that is. But we found one. To get a better look at the head, you can just select head, and then there you go. And there you go. You got the head, blah blah blah. You know, it's very blue. That's to be said. It's very blue. Yeah, and then bosh. But we're gonna put him back to forward view, and then bang. There we go. There, bosh. There is Flatfingers. Stats, pretty self-explanatory. It's all about their level, how much health, magicka, stamina they have, their speed, their skills, enchanting class. Now this is like a classing system. So like different ones will give different stats on the skills and have different stats for health, magic, and stamina. So it depends on who you select. Will depend on what kind of health they would have, what kind of magicka they would have, stamina they will have, what skills they'll have. Selecting level, so for example, we'll put them to level 5. At the moment, nothing here has changed. None of this stuff has changed. It's all just still the same. But what we can do is click on the auto calculate stats, and then there you go. So now the numbers are slightly changed. The numbers here are a mixture of calculations of their level mixed with their class. Obviously, the higher the level, the higher the skills value will be, the higher their health will be, stamina will be, magicka will be, if their class has anything to do with magicka. If not, it won't rise. I don't think magicka will rise at all. It's only if it kind of fits into the class that you select them to be. But since this guy is a merchant, we don't need to worry about this too much. But if you were to create a follower, which we'll cover this basically in a follower. We'll cover this in the followers. Because in the followers, we're going to be thinking a bit more about this. Anyway. What we're going to do next is we're actually going to go into the factions. Now this is what we are going to need to concentrate more on. So, we want to right click on here. Click on new. And then you get this little box. Hello little box. Now what we're going to do is we're going to type in job. And you got job trainer, favour jobs, job, you know, a lot of jobs. But we can reorder these to be alphabetical by just clicking on the form here. So you got a lot of different kind of jobs. So you got job hostler, housecarl, this, that, blah, blah, blah. Trainers, obviously, it's more about the people who you would basically pay to train you in certain skills, obviously, but we don't need to worry about that. What we are looking for, though, is two particular ones at the moment. We want the job blacksmith faction. Then we add in another one. Type in job again. Click on form to get it out in alphabetical order, just make it a bit easier for us to find shit. And then you want to go down to merchant faction. So you need to add these two. But since this is obviously so new and is in their own place and linked to their own chest, we now need to add in the faction that we made. And there we go. And that's basics. For those are the basic factions you need to give to someone if you want them to be a merchant. In this case, it's a blacksmith merchant. But obviously, if they're an apothecary, it would be it would be job apothecary faction, job merchant faction, and then whatever the faction you made was, and so on and so forth, depending on which job they do. Sometimes though, this is where it's a good idea to do a little bit of testing with this, because sometimes you may need to mess around with the ranks a little bit. So you might need to change one of the ranks here, and to do that, it's fairly simple to change a rank, because there's only two numbers that it can really be. That's either 0, or if you left click and then left click again, then put in -1, press enter, and then it goes to rank -1. Normally, most of the time, it works all fine on 0s, but every now and then, for some reason, one of them struggles to work a little bit, so then they don't actually sell you stuff or buy stuff from you. So you will have to mess around with the ranks a little bit. But that you could obviously do. You could do with testing. But what we're going to do for now is we're going to change that back to 0 and then bosh. Alright. So that's basically how the factions work for a merchant. Is job whatever you want them to be selling or acting or basically being, whether it be a blacksmith, apothecary, mage or whatever. Then you give them job merchant faction, and that's that. And then the faction that you made specifically for them, and then that's it. And then test it. If they're still not working, you change one of the ranks on here, but it'll more likely be either like this kind of style one or this kind of style one is the one that you want to put the -1, and then boom, you can give them an assigned crime faction, but we're not going to worry about that. Bolster that idea. But you can give them a crime faction, but I don't need to, because I haven't given them a crime faction in here, so I don't need to worry about that. Relationships is more linking to followers, so we'll go over that in the follower section. keywords is, there's a lot of bloody keywords. A lot of keywords. You know, these are all keywords. This basically just links to a lot of stuff. Your best bet is to look for another tutorial video on this one, because there's a lot of different types of keywords to look around for. But we're gonna give him job blacksmith. You don't need to give him this, but we're gonna give it to him anyway. And actor type NPC. But you don't actually need to give them these keywords. But for the sake of this, I am gonna give them it, just to show basically what, like, how to add in keywords. Next we got AI data. We want to keep him unaggressive. We'll make him brave. He's a brave boy. Assistance helps friends and allies, helps allies, or helps nobody. We're going to put it as helps friends and allies. Because what I might do is, once I've got all the characters created for this, I might create a faction that links everyone together. So then if you do start attacking one of them, they will all start attacking you. So be careful with that. Aggro radius behavior. This is more for, like, say if you know, a lot of the animals like wolves, bears and mammoths use this aggro kind of radius behavior, which is basically, it's like their early warning system. You'll see when you'll slowly go towards it. When you get to a certain point, they slowly turn around and start roaring at you, or whatever they do. You know, in a way of a bear, they start basically roaring at you, kind of thing. This guy to basically telling you to feck off, kind of thing. But they don't attack. They just growl and roar at you. And you can set the radius on that. Whether it be 20 foot away, 30 foot away, 50 foot away, whatever. An attack is kind of probably in the middle somewhere between both of these technically, and an attack, which basically, you know, so you can set it as warn as 50 foot, or basically 50. Warn / attack set it to 30, and then attack set it to 10. So then if you get within 10 foot of them, they are definitely going to attack you. But obviously with a merchant, we don't need to worry about that. And then mood doesn't really do a lot. It probably just means that, you know, you'll probably see him looking a bit more happy, a bit more smiley in game. But that's kind of pretty much all it really does. And energy, we'll give him a bit more energy. He has an energy of 75. What is energy? I don't actually know. I don't know what energy is. I've never messed around with it. So I'm not going to try and explain what it is or try and guess. All I know is that for creating a merchant, it's not actually that important at all. But we'll give it in. Morality is basically any crime, violence against crimes, property crime only. So it's all like what they would accept and will not accept in the ways of behaviour, of your behaviour, basically. But I don't know, any crime. I'm going to set it to any crime. So if you commit any crime, he's going to be pissed at you. And combat style, we'll just leave it as default, because basically what that basically means is that he'll just go for the default fighting style of an Argonian, which would basically just be going to punch you. If he doesn't have a weapon, he'll just go and punch you. But combat style again, that's going to be something that we're going to cover a bit more in the actual creating the follower. And gift filter, we don't really care about that. Who gives a crap? That's just pointless fluff, so we didn't worry about that. AI packages, I am not covering. If you ask me to cover AI packages, I am going to tell you to fuck off, because they're a pain in my ass, just like Navmesh. But we want to give him a basic AI package. We want to give him a basic AI package. Now you can select add, and select from a fucking shite ton of AI packages from here. it depends on what you want them to do. If you want them to wander around and stuff like that, you would give them more of a sandbox kind of AI package. But you can also give them area packages to follow specific routines, this and that and the other, blah 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 blah. But I'm not going to worry about that too much in this, because again, it's a very complex. It's a bit complicated. I only know the basics of AI packaging, so I'm not going to worry about that. But what I will do though is we will go down to default package list, and then we're going to start typing in default, and then you can see here we got a load of default packages. And then we got a whole bunch of them. What we're just going to want to do is we're going to give them, or flat fingers here, default master package list. There you go. You can give that a bit to the basics of everybody, and it will give them a very basic AI package to a degree, and that's it. But that's all I need. That's all I need for him. That's the thing. That's all I need for flat fingers. Is for him to have the basic kind of AI package. Then go to and then if we go to infantry, now we can give him extra items. We could change what he sleeps in, but I'm not gonna worry about that. So you can go around changing everybody, so everybody actually sleeps in. I think there's an outfit on here somewhere that is like basically no clothing or something like that. I don't know. But you can change what people sleep in. So you can get them to sleep in specific clothes. You can get them to sleep in no clothes. You can get them to sleep in armor. You can get them to sleep in whatever. But we're not gonna worry about any of that. We don't want any of that. And no, he's not gonna sleep in Nocturnal's outfit. So we're gonna put that back to none. But we want to give him a default outfit. It's just so it's just so he's wearing something. We can't have him in the city like this. Come on. We've got to give him a bit of dignity, because, look at his hair. It's fucking stupid. So what we're going to do is we are going to give him, basically, a blacksmith outfit. So if we go down, and we should be able to find it somewhere. It might be in the clothes here. So look, we got clothes? We got anything? Here we are. Blacksmith. Blacksmith outfit 01. Blacksmith outfit 02. Now the default outfit is what they will be wearing when you first see them. If it's a follower, it's what they will be wearing when you first meet them. If it's an NPC like a merchant, it's basically what they will be wearing all the time. But obviously with the followers you can change it, because obviously you can give them new equipment, this, that and the other. But for him, obviously he's a blacksmith, so we want to give him a blacksmith outfit. So we'll go to that, and then just to see what it looks like, just click on full, and then there you go. He's now wearing his outfit, so now he will wear that actually in the game. And that's all we really need to give him. We don't really need to give him anything else. We don't need to give him any spells. We don't need to give him any sounds, animations, attack data, character gen presets. Now, technically, if we do mess around with any of these, technically, since we're using traits here, I can't technically really mess around with them. But if I was to mess around with any of these, then the face would technically break, and the face glitch bug would return. So basically, once you've got this here ticked, do not mess around with either the character gen morphs or the character gen parts, because if you mess around with any of them, then the face bug will come back. And then that's basically it. That's the general gist of how to create a merchant when actually creating the actual character themselves. So just to go a quick recap on how to do this, on the basis of how to do the merchant, because there was probably a lot of information in there to take in, as well as me adding a few extra bits and pieces. So we're just going to basically go over very quickly the main points. Editor ID, you give them the editor ID. You give them a name. Obviously. You set them to be essential, unless you want them to be killable. Then don't. But if you want them to be able to not be, if you don't want them to be killed, set them to essential, and set them to be unique. Then, to get rid of the face bug, go to Actibase, select from any of the Actibases here, blah 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 blah, whatever you're creating. Again, presets, do not use any presets because they do not work. And then, but a vast majority of these will work, and you've got a large selection of people to use anyway. Once you've got them there, you make sure that traits is ticked, and that's really the only one that needs to be ticked is traits, and that's it. If you're creating a bandit, you can also give them like use factions, this, that, and the other. But for the face bug, use traits. Done. Go to stats, set them to whatever you want it to be. But for a merchant, you don't really need to worry about messing around with that at all. This would be covered in the followers. Factions, you give them the faction that you created specifically for your NPC merchant. The job, whatever their job is, faction. In this case, since he's a blacksmith, it's job blacksmith faction. And then a job merchant faction. Then you do some testing. If it doesn't work, you change either this or this to rank -1 by highlighting it by left click, then left click again, type in -1 and then press enter, and then there you go. Relationships you can skip. Keywords, most of the time you don't need to do keywords, but you know, but it's always a safe bet to put in actor type NPC and then job, whatever their job is. And that's it. AI data, you know, you can set this to whatever you want them to be, but in this case, you know, it's just nice to basically to set it to mood is happy, aggression is unaggressive, confidence is brave, assistance is help friends and allies, combat style can leave it as default, and morality any crime. AI packages, go to default package list, default master package list, done. Go to infantry, in with for a merchant, just go to default outfit, select an outfit you want them to wear, then you're done, and then that's it, done and dusted. Then you click on OK, and boom, that's him. Then if we go here, and here we are, Zero City's blacksmith dude, and then we just add him in. Now he's floating because he's above light there, so we're gonna bring him down. Okay, and now he is down. Keep selecting the light. I don't want the light. Get off the light. Alright. So there he is. There is our blacksmith. He's all set up and ready to go. But that's one thing I do want to do is now hopefully you can technically link him to this, for example, which this is basically a marker, a furniture marker that basically will mean that he will lean on the stone table like it was a counter. Now you can link him to that, but I don't need to. But if I keep him here like this, then what should happen basically is that he'll, you know, for a bit he'll lean on that, then he'll wander off and interact with this, and then wander over here and interact with the sharpening wheel, then wander over here, interact with the anvil, and then go back to the tanning rack, then go back to the sharpening wheel, and so on and so forth. Blah 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 blah. You don't need to link NPCs to furniture markers, because their basic AI package or that default master package will basically allow them to interact with stuff like this. So that's why you just need them for the basics, if you want them to have the basic stuff. And that's it for the merchant. And there you go. Nice and easy for the merchant. Alright, in the next bit, we are going to cover... Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to save the follower for another video, because this has probably been going on for a while already, and there's a lot of information in this video, or there's a good amount of fast information. So to throw follower stuff in there as well, and the marriage stuff in there as well, is probably a lot to handle in one video. So I will do a followers and the marriage in the next video, I think. Actually, just to keep it simplified. So if you're more interested in just creating merchants, then you can just watch this video, and then that'll be primarily it. Right, so yeah, that's it for this video. So there's probably going to be 2 more videos within this series. So the next one, again, will be basically about creating followers, and basically how to make a marryable if you want to make your follower marryable, or any other NPC that you make or that's already in-game marryable if they're not actually already a marriage option. And then there probably will be a bit of a gap between the follower video and the last video, because the last video is going to be on nav mesh and the basics for nav meshing. But I'm not going to do nav meshing until basically everything else about the city is basically done. Because nav mesh, when you're creating a place like a dungeon like this, or big ass player space like this, the nav mesh is pretty much the last thing you want to do. So that's why it's going to be done basically at the end. So that's why there will be a bit of a gap between the follower video and the nav mesh video. But in the nav mesh video, it won't be just about nav mesh. It will cover nav mesh, and also have a little tour around in-game around the actual Sunken City itself. Alright, so that's it for this video. If you have any questions, or if something wasn't, or if I wasn't too clear about something in the video on about making a merchant, let me know in the comments below, and I will answer that question. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comments below, and if I'm able to give you an answer, I'll give you an answer. If not, I'll try and at least find some way to answer it, or find something that can get, or something that can lead you to the answer, basically. But right, if you like this video, please remember to like it. Subscribe to the channel so you can see more videos like this, if these kind of videos are your kind of thing. Yeah, these aren't probably going to be more. These aren't really going to be my kind of popular kind of videos. Not that popular in the first place anyway, because I'm not very popular. But fuck it, do these for fun. But yeah, if this kind of style of video is not your kind of thing, I do obviously have other videos on the channel where I do mod reviews on Skyrim. I've done some Oblivion videos. I've done some Gran Turismo videos, No Man's Sky videos. They're kind of old, so they're probably a bit shit, but they're there anyway. But yeah, so it's not just these kind of videos I do. I do other kind of styles videos as well. So you can always subscribe to the channel, have a look on there. And if you want to find me on Discord, you could there should be a link in the channel banner or in the About Me page, which, as far as I'm aware, that those links work. I have no idea. Problem is, the only way I'm going to know is if you actually click on it. And then if it doesn't work, you can let me in the comments below. And if it does work, I'll see you on Discord. Simple as, isn't it? But right, time for me to get out of here. So until next time, I'll see you all later.